Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. Yesterday we talked a lot about where I saw Bitcoin heading as long as the stock market can hold and Bitcoin continues to sit on support of 25K. Now we're going to be diving into altcoins and Ethereum and giving you guys an explanation as to where I think the altcoins are headed as Bitcoin eventually finishes its bottom. This is a very important time because we're actually seeing Ethereum lead Bitcoin and showing better market structure, which is giving me a clear idea as to what is going to be happening moving forward over the next couple weeks. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. With that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, here we are to start off today's video, and what we were talking extensively about yesterday is really going around this 25K level and deciding whether or not this is going to continue to hold as support. Now, as of right now, we've spent a long period of time consolidating above this level. In fact, if we pull up our date tool, ever since the point of us actually flipping this, we've basically been here for, almost 200 days, 181 days to be exact, from the point of us actually breaking out of 25K. So as we've broken out of 25K, we've kind of went into a new, area of resistance and support. I would just call it a new range, right? Where we're consolidating on support of 25K, but then we also have this resistance being about $31,000. And for the last 180 days approximately, we've just been kind of stuck consolidating here. Now, if this is going to break out one way or another, I want you guys to understand that it is going to be a big breakout. And what is telling me the direction that Bitcoin is wanting to take is actually one of the charts with Ethereum. And this is something we've talked a little bit about. And I was talking to you guys about the potential where Ethereum was actually going to kind of fall back down, make one more final low, and then this was going to more or less just be a retest of our ascending support that we've had since, June of 2022. And I was drawing that this is a big ascending triangle pattern, and I still think it is. Inside of an ascending triangle pattern, you're going to have an ascending support, indicated right here by higher highs and higher lows, but then you're going to have a horizontal resistance, right? And we can see that we've been closing below this resistance for a long period of time, and we have over 4 different reactions on this level, and really 5 if you count this wick down in here. Now, for us to be correcting and us to be sitting back onto ascending support, I think that this is the early sign that we're looking at a reversal. And I talked a little bit about yesterday how we kind of need to see the stock market reverse if we're going to see Bitcoin. And we're actually seeing the stock market making another new high from where we were at yesterday. So as it stands, the stock market is still looking bullish. The stock market is still holding ascending support, and if this makes another big push, let's assume that we can get above this high here at about 45.50. If we can get above that and hold that as support, I really do think that that's going to set us in for that next leg up, going to those all-time highs. If we see this happen, we are going to see Bitcoin break out, and Bitcoin holding this support, we're kind of just waiting for the stock market to do its thing, because the second that the stock market topped up here at the end of July, and once we tagged this resistance at 4,600, we had this decent sell-off that took us all the way back down to this mid-range. And we were watching this mid-range, waiting to decide if it was going to hold a support or not. During this sell-off was where we finally saw Bitcoin sell off from the top of this 29 and 30K level. That was where we came back down and once again retested the exact same 25K level that we've been consolidating on for a number of months, right? And so now as it stands, what are we looking for? Well, the difference that I'm seeing between the two markets here, I think that Ethereum actually has much better and easier to identify Elliott wave structure, and I like the way the ETH actually looks compared to Bitcoin. Sometimes Bitcoin can hold better support, which, is actually more bullish, but it can be a little bit trickier to identify where we're at. Because keep in mind, guys, Bitcoin, if we're looking at our Elliott wave count, it looks something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? And then this correction that we've been in for the last few months, we never made a lower low. And so generally, if you're going to see an ABC correction, it'll be something like this, A, B, and C. and we'll make one more final low, and then it'll kind of bottom around the 618 before going back up again. With Bitcoin, we had this sell-off, but the sell-off, didn't even retrace the entirety of this last pump. So when it comes to Bitcoin and the Elliott wave count, I'm not 100% certain on exactly what it is. We could be at a completed 5-wave impulse, or it could be actually something more along the lines of this. We're inside of a wave 4 correction, and we're still getting ready for our final wave 5. And these are the only two scenarios that I see with Bitcoin at this point. Now with ETH, it becomes a lot easier to identify. We see very clear Elliott wave structure, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 up. And then after our 5-wave impulse, we see your standard A, B, and a C correction. Now, the way that we would determine whether a C leg is done is you have to have a set of 3 impulse waves. So in the same way that we saw 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, we would need to see the same thing on the way down. So we do see that 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So as it stands, ETH has actually completed, or what looks to be at the point of completion, an ABC correction and this first impulse. And so when I'm looking at ETH, this is what's telling me that Bitcoin is probably going to end up bottoming here. Is ETH actually holding support? We've already retested our ascending support down in here, and we have a completed ABC correction. The only thing that would tell us that it's not completed would more or less be if ETH gets kind of rejected around here, because keep in mind, we're still below these short-term resistances, right? Let me remove these waves real quick so it's a little bit easier for you guys to see. We're still technically below resistance, right? So if we see ETH make this run up and we tag this resistance, but we're unable to kind of close, and then we make another low like this, then at that point, we would be looking for the potential of one more final low before the ABC would be completed. I need to go to a little bigger time frame. And so we only have 2 real scenarios that I see. Either we've already finished 5 waves down, and this most recent decline was our wave 5 capitulation, or we've only finished 3 waves down, we're inside of wave 4, and then we'll kind of get one more final sell-off here before that's done, and then we'll just knock this ascending support a little bit lower. Because keep in mind, guys, that we do have the potential of hitting some of these wicks. If we're drawing our ascending support at the very low end of these wicks, there is still the potential where we do make one more final low. Whereas if we kind of tighten this up a little bit more and fit it with the wave 2 correction, then at that point this would show that we have the potential of this actually being completed. For me, it doesn't really matter, because if we get one more low for ETH, I think that it's equally just as bullish as it ever was. Nothing really changes in the big picture, because nonetheless, we're still going to be holding ascending support. We're still just going to be inside of an ABC correction. The only difference is we just have one more final wave 5 to go before it's over. So the only difference here, guys, is we either get a better buying opportunity or the market bottoms right now. And what's telling me the market could actually bottom here is the fact that we are seeing the S&P 500 making another high. If we were to see the S&P 500 sell off, we would have probably wanted to see it happen right over in here. And we kind of did, because keep in mind, if we come and draw Fibonacci, we went all the way up and tagged the 618 and then sold off. And so if you were a bear, this could have been looked at as a bearish ABC up before we ultimately start the next impulse down, right? And do something like that. If you were a bear, this is what you would be watching for right now. But the problem is we're still holding ascending support. So if this is going to be an ABC up, that will get invalidated if we actually clear out and make a new high above 45.30. And then at that point, I think it's clear skies ahead to that all-time high threshold. If we see this, I don't see any scenario where Bitcoin loses 25K. And the fact that we're seeing ETH already looking like it either is done with 5 waves down of the ABC, or we only have one more small decline left to go to about 1500. Either way, to me, ETH looks very, very bullish. And the thing that I absolutely love about this setup, I don't know if you guys remember, but I've talked a lot about stacking one waves. And inside of a stacking one wave setup, you're going to see 2 one wave impulses back to back, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A, B, and C. And we actually have that inside of ETH. Remember, guys, ETH and many of the altcoins never made a lower low when FTX collapsed, right? Many of them made a higher high. This was the FTX collapse, and this was our peak low of the bear market, and that was actually June of 2022. So right off the bat, altcoins are already in a different, setup going into this cycle. Now, what I like about this is inside of ETH, once we bottomed in June, we saw 5 waves up. We saw a clear impulse, and then we saw this ABC correction, and the bottom of wave C happened once FTX actually collapsed. And this was a higher high, right? This is a higher high, meaning this was our first impulse right here. This was the first impulse of the cycle. Then after FTX, we did another impulse, another 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 up, and we're currently at the very end stages of our ABC correction. Whether that's one more low or whether that's here, it doesn't matter. We have now completed another wave 1 impulse. And so inside of these setups, guys, anytime we see 2 one-wave impulses side by side, it's leading into a much greater impulse. And what I mean by that is this. If we come over here and grab our Elliott waves, this first impulse in June leading into the end of the year and the FTX collapse was wave 1 of 1. And so inside of every impulse, we're going to have 3 impulse waves. So we have wave 1, we'll have wave 3, and then we'll have wave 5. And then that will complete the first cycle, right? And so for us to be completing another wave 1, we're literally inside of this wave 3 right now. And I don't know how high it's going to go or anything. I'm just kind of sharing with you guys where we're at. We finished wave 1 of 1. Now we're working on wave 3. Inside of wave 3, we have to have a new set of impulse waves. Well, we've already finished the first one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ABC. So this is wave 1 of 3. We're going to get wave 3 of 3, and then we'll have wave 5 of 3. And you guys got to remember that that only completes wave 3. And then we still have a whole nother wave 5 to go after that. So the beautiful thing about Elliott waves is every single impulse, you're going to have 3 impulse waves, right? And then you're going to go through 3 sets of 3. So this is Elliott wave theory. And what it says basically is that every single impulse, you're going to have 3 impulse waves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ABC. That's wave 1. Then we do the same thing going into wave 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ABC. That's wave 3. Then we do the same thing, and this finishes the third set of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, and C, right? And so this is what I'm talking about when I'm referencing the way Elliott wave is going to work. What we're seeing inside of Ethereum today, we've already finished wave 1, right? That was this impulse right here. Now, what's really interesting, because we're so early in the cycle, a lot of people are assuming that this wave right here is actually this, but that's not the case. What we're seeing is this wave, this second one wave, is actually just this small little wave 1 impulse right here. And we can see, based off of this chart, notice here how after wave 1, we start the new set of impulse waves. And this is wave 1 of 3, right? This will be wave 3 of 3, and then wave 5 of 3. But you always have that first impulse and the beginning of the new cycle. And so if you notice here, at the bottom of our ABC correction, we get this 1 wave impulse, and it goes all the way back up to the top of our first 1 wave high. And then that's where we see the 2 wave correction, and then that's what leads us into the breakout and a brand new high. If we actually compare with that, what we're seeing with Ethereum, we're literally at the same point, where this little 1 wave and 2 wave is the exact same thing as this and this. We did the exact same thing. And so while most people would assume that we're just inside or have just finished this wave 3, we can't, because of the fact wave 4 can never close back within wave 1's market structure. So we know that this is only a sub-wave, wave 1, because of the fact we never even broke out of the top of our 5 wave, right? We never broke out of the top of this move right here. And so we know that this has to be a sub-wave of wave 3. Sub-wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that's what we have to see going into this next impulse. And so the reason why this is such a bullish setup is because of the fact, if we were to overlay what we're seeing today, we're basically in this exact same threshold right here, where we have this first impulse down here. That was basically this one right here. And now we're inside of the subwave 1, 2. The only difference is it's just this big wave right here. It's the same thing as that first 1 and 2. And so what that means, guys, is what we actually have coming next is still wave 3, wave 4, and wave 5. And so if we're looking at this and we're looking at, you know, the market now for Bitcoin, we still have a whole nother impulse to go. And that's why I believe that what the market of ETH is telling us is that this is going to be a wave 1, 2, and I think that the next impulse is going to be taking us up to about 3,500. That could be our wave 4 correction. And then I still think that we have one more impulse to go before even wave 3 is over, right? Because that's only wave 3. That will be wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we still have a whole nother set to go after that. And so I just find it really interesting how ETH is actually providing one of the more bullish setups in the market. We have stacking wave 1 impulses, and this is always what happens right before a much greater and more parabolic impulse happens. These are just the very early stages, which makes sense because if we're actually following this based off of Fibonacci and an ascending triangle, the way that you would actually calculate this, our minimum target going into this impulse is going to be taking us up to about 3,000. And so if this is a confirmed ascending triangle, we have a minimum target of this 1618. So we have to go to at least $3,000 in the next impulse for this to actually be a confirmed bullish breakout pattern. And I do believe that that's going to be the case. In fact, I think that we overextend and go all the way to 3,500 inside of this next impulse. You guys got to remember that we've spent a long period of time consolidating inside of this range, about 450 days. And I think that once we do finally get that breakout, you know, even if we come back up here and it takes a little bit of time, once we get that breakout, it's going to happen very quick. It won't be as slow and methodical as the buildup, because once the base has been, you know, once the foundation has been planted, I guess, that sets the stage for a very quick and sudden impulse. And that's how it always works. The market likes to move in quick impulses. The time it takes to lead into the impulse can, you know, be multi-months, even years. However, once that market structure has been broken and the market flips bullish, usually the impulse takes a much shorter period of time. You know, it might take you 1.5, 2 years to finish a major cycle low, but it might only take 3 months to get a big impulse to the next high before you start another multi-month correction. So it's just something to be aware of. With ETH, we do see one of the more bullish setups right now, and that's what's giving me a lot of confidence that Bitcoin will hold 25K, and then also the stock market will continue to go up. Because as of right now, even recording this video, the stock market is getting even more of a buyback. We've retested the last high. We're getting continuation. Really, guys, like I stated, once we get above 45.30, it's just basically clear skies ahead until that all-time high threshold. Now, one thing we're going to be looking at here is the Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin dominance is sitting on top of the prior highs as support, and we have broken out of our descending resistance. This is a little bull flag formation consolidating on top of the prior high as new support. I think that this is setting us up for a very big move, and we could see this thing go up quite a bit. I don't want to draw this resistance because I don't know exactly how high it's going to go, but if we're retesting the whole entire range that, you know, we've spent a long time consolidating in, you know, 750 days approximately that we've consolidated inside of this range. For us to be flipping it as support, don't be surprised if we see a pretty quick and sudden impulse that will behave a little similar to actually that first bear market over here, where we saw 5 waves up. But you guys got to remember that the 2018 bear market bottom was right here. And then we saw Bitcoin go from 3.2 thousand all the way to 14K. And during that time, Bitcoin finished its final run in the Bitcoin dominance. And it was in that first impulse. I'll go all the way back so you guys know what I'm talking about. So Bitcoin dominance was here, and then when Bitcoin went to 14K, we actually saw Bitcoin dominance make that final high, and that was where Bitcoin dominance actually topped. So if we're going to end up following something similar, it would make sense that we have one more final impulse to go, and we're basically looking at something like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in a similar way that we saw this. It's just kind of unique. This is just a smaller, shorter wave count, right? But nonetheless, it could lead us to this final wave 5 blow off top in the same way that it did, you know, in the last cycle. Because we got to remember that generally speaking, what we have always seen with Bitcoin, we've kind of always seen Bitcoin outperform altcoins and the rest of the market in its first impulse. And then altcoins end up outperforming during the run into new all-time highs, right? We see Bitcoin outperform here. We see altcoins outperform pretty much here to here. And sometimes even inside of this final wave 5. It's anytime past the all-time highs, that's where we see altcoins actually outshine. But with us being below all-time highs and being basically at the very beginning of this new cycle, we have to remember here that if we are to actually see this final impulse take off upwards of 40 and 50K, then most likely we're going to see Bitcoin dominance make this final leg up before, ultimately I expect this to go actually into a new low. And it'll be in the same way that it's always been, in an eternal downtrend. And that's kind of what I'm personally watching for going into this cycle. I can't tell you guys exactly how high it's going to go, but this is kind of the thing that I'm personally watching for, is one more final impulse here to complete this downtrend. And this is just a lower high before we make a new lower low, because Bitcoin dominance has always been in an eternal downtrend. And I still firmly believe that this is going to continue to trend lower as long as there's more altcoins that are able to gain market dominance and share over Bitcoin. And so everything that we're seeing right now is bullish in my opinion. We're still holding 25K. As long as we're above 25K and the stock market's doing good, I think it's a very, very high likelihood that we're going to make this final blow off top to complete this very first cycle. So if you guys found value in this, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. If you guys want to join the Discord server, follow my ebook, or simply just see what I'm doing with my money as I trade and invest over this course of the next cycle, make sure you guys check it out. Links are in the description to go ahead and sign up on my website. Thank you guys so much for the support. And with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.